Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're hitting 200 and we're going to usher Professor PLO Lumumba is here live with us. Now you have the audience, Professor. I want to see him on my screen. Wow. Can someone give a shout out there? Hello, Professor.
Yeah, yesterday technology conspired against us. But today we hope we will not be victimized by technology. Let me start.
No way. Go ahead.
Let me say how glad I am with what you are doing across the continent of Africa. We know that because of COVID-19 or the coronavirus, the entire continent of Africa is frozen. And even as much as we say that we will resume to be normal, the new normal will be very different. The new normal will demand that Africans think differently. The new normal will demand that Africans work differently. The new normal will demand that Africans cooperate differently. The new normal will require that we recognize that this world fortune favors the vigilant. And I have no doubt in my mind that this is the time to give meaning to African unity. I know that there are those who are impatient, those who are saying that we have talked for too long, but let me tell those who think that talk has no value. Throughout the ages, talk is the mother's milk of action. The men and women of action require to be energized on a daily basis through talk. And the world is such that everybody have their own chosen path of action. There are those whose duty it is to talk. There are those whose duty it is to act. And there are those whose only claim to fame is that they enjoy the combined efforts of those who talk and those who act. But acting and talking is at the very heart of human civilization. So those of us who are in the African continent, we must now ask ourselves, having seen how COVID-19 has ravaged the continent, there is not a single country that is not in some kind of crisis, whether it is a lockdown up to level 5, as we have seen in South Africa, or the lockdowns as we have seen in Kampala in Uganda, or Kigali in Rwanda, or the containment as we have seen in Nairobi, Kenya, or the containment or lockdown that we have seen in Kinshasa, Zaire, or the lockdown that we have seen in Lagos or in Freetown in Sierra Leone. The reality is that the entire continent of Africa is victimized by this thing called the coronavirus. The question then that we must ask, what must we do in order to ensure that we save our continent and our people post the corona pandemic? I've had the occasion to listen to very many Africans. I've had those who have talked about the devastating effect of on the economy. I've had the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Adesina Kinwumi of Nigeria, talking about how Africa has to reorganize herself differently. And I can't agree more with Dr. Kinwumi that Africa must organize differently. I've had the president of South Africa, President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the current chair of the organization or the African Union, talking about the need for Africa to cooperate differently. I've had the occasion of listening to President Paul Kagame talking about East African community as the head of the East African community. I've had President Issatu Mahamadou, who is the current chair of ECOWAS. I've had the president of Tanzania, who is the current chair of SADC, President John Pombe Magufuli. And what one hears when one looks at all these individuals is the recognition that going forward, we must do that which is in the best interest of Africa. And I've not stopped there. I've also listened to our brothers and kin and kith who are outside of the continent of Africa. I've listened to our brothers who are in the Caribbean, who are talking about the need for greater collaboration between our friends and our kith and kin in the Caribbean. I've also heard those who are in the United States of America and those who are in Europe. For the first time since we started talking about Pan-Africanism and African unity, Africans are now recognizing that our long-term health not only demands but requires that we look at those things which are in our best interest. And indeed, the plight of our young men and women, as we've witnessed in China, for example, in Guangzhou, has demonstrated to us that we are still being discriminated against because of the color of our skin. I've seen Africans being denied treatment in Italy because of the color of their skin. And this sends one clear message, that going forward, our unity must not only be something that we speak about, it must not be something that we sloganeer about, but something that we want to act about. So the question is, what are the real practical issues that we must address in order to ensure that post-corona Africa will be on a path that will guarantee or ensure or promise her prosperity? I'm aware, and I've been in quite a number of conversations where people think that the African Union is a toothless bulldog. But I keep on telling them that even if it is a toothless bulldog, it is a dog. And if we must give it false teeth, let us do so. The African Union is an existing institution which must be supported. And even when we disagree with it, we must disagree with it in an agreeable fashion. Right now, the African Union has established centers for disease control, and there is one in Central Africa. There is one in Central Africa, which is based in Gabon. There is one in West Africa, which is based in Nigeria. There is one in Northern Africa, which is based in Egypt. There is one in Southern Africa, which is based in Zambia. And there is one in Eastern Africa, which is based in Nairobi, Kenya. What we must ask ourselves going forward is how we can fund and energize those institutions so that if there is another pandemic like corona, we will be prepared for it. Beyond public health issues, which we must grapple with going forward, when we talk about African unity, we must talk about certain foundational issues. How are we going to ensure that there is free movement of labor across the continent of Africa? How are we going to ensure that things like xenophobia will be eliminated in the discourse and in our actions in Africa? How are we going to ensure that we have a single passport that will enable us to move across the continent of Africa? How are we going to ensure that our economies are revived after the corona? Because remember, the institutions and the countries that have been lending to Africa are themselves devastated. The United States of America may not have enough money to spare to give us. European Union will not have enough money to spare to give us. The Asian Development Bank will not have enough money to spare to give us. The Scandinavian countries like Denmark and Norway and Sweden will not have enough money, so that there is a sense in which we must look inwards. And if we look inward, we must ask ourselves, how can we reorganize our budgets? If you look at many African countries now, there is a disproportionate amount of money that is taken into buying arms and armaments and in the defense sector. Kind of money must now be moved into the health sector. That kind of money must now be moved into the small and medium-sized companies and enterprises. That kind of money must now be moved into the area of research and development. That kind of money must now be moved to ensure that we create opportunities for innovation and invention for our young men and women. And for Africans who are in diaspora, there are nearly 230 million Africans in the diaspora. That is larger than the population of Nigeria, which is the most populous nation in the world. And our kin and kith who are in the diaspora comprise some of our best men and women. If you go into the medical field, if you want the best doctors in Nigeria, some of them will be found in Europe and America. If you want the best doctors from Ghana, some of them will be found in Europe and America. If you want the best doctors from the Democratic Republic of Congo, they'll be found in Paris and Brussels. If you want the best doctors from Equatorial Guinea, some of them will be found in Madrid. If you want the best doctors from Angola and Mozambique and Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, some of them will be found in Lisbon. And if you want all these people who are outside of the continent, this is the time. This is the time for you and my good friend from the United States of America, Rosenthal, who has been trying to establish a bullion bank, which is gold denominated. This is the time for us to consider migrating from the dollar and from the Chinese yuan in order to create an African currency. This is the time to ensure that the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is set to be established in Accra, Ghana in July of this year, begins to function. And I'm being told that the African Union is already thinking about postponing the implementation of SCTFA. They must not do that. They must start now. If you talk about freeing the airspace, this is the time that we must give meaning to both the Yamoussoukro Agreement on freedom of airspace in Africa and the Kigali Agreement on the same particular issue. In other words, when one looks at Africa, all the protocols, all the treaties, all the policies that we ever needed are already there. What we must now do, as many of us are saying, is to begin to move in the arena of implementation. We must not remain on the drawing board for too long, thinking that we'll gain perfection on the drawing board. We must now move onto the ground and make mistakes as we go along. And some of the things that we must also think about is to ensure that we reduce conflicts in Africa, because conflicts undermine economic development and also compromise public health issues. Many of us are not talking, but how many of us are following the activities in Central African Republic and in the Sahelian region, in the northern part of Burkina Faso, in Chad, in Mauritania, and in Mali, and how the conflicts in that area, and of course in Libya, are undermining the fight against COVID-19. And when you go to southern Cameroon and Ambazonia, one is asking, who is doing the testing in Ambazonia? How are we keeping social distancing in Ambazonia? How are we sanitizing in Ambazonia? How are we wearing masks in Ambazonia? And when I speak about Ambazonia, Ambazonia could be a representative of different parts of the continent of Africa. And my view, therefore, is that going forward, we must urge our politicians to remember that if Africa is to work, this is the time. This is the time that we must give meaning to the words of the founding fathers of the African unity, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, Ahmed Sékou Touré, Modibo Keïta, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe of South Africa, Samora Moises Machel, and I could go on, and the much younger ones. I've been very impressed by the manner in which some younger leaders in Africa are breaking the ceiling. I was very happy to hear, for example, that in Senegal, in the fight against COVID-19, the Senegalese are now producing testing kits, which are less than $1. And I'm told that the French are not happy. But the French must remember that the duty of the black man is not to make the Frenchman happy. I'm also happy that in Madagascar, President Rajoelina has already ensured that herbalists and other professionals in the pharmaceutical sectors have come up with a possible cure called COVID organic. And I'm happy that Equatorial Guinea has ordered the same. I'm told that Sierra Leone has ordered the same. And subject to verification, I'm told that even Tanzania has ordered the same. And some people are trying to poo-poo the efforts of Madagascar. Madagascar has started. Our duty and the duty of our professionals in the pharmaceutical sector is to ensure that we develop the research that has been undertaken, so that going forward, we must also, in our quest for unity, ensure that we produce our own medicine. We must no longer rely on Roche, Johnson & Johnson, Novartis, and these American and European pharmaceutical organizations and Indian and Chinese organizations. In any event, the herbs that are used for making medicine is found in Africa. If they are not found in the equatorial forest of Congo, they are found in Kenya or in Cameroon or in Gabon or in Nigeria or in Ghana or in Zimbabwe or in South Africa or in Angola. So Africa has all the things that can make us work and move in the right direction. And as I conclude my opening remarks, Africa is the youngest continent. The average age in the continent of Africa is at best 25. It means that we have an army of young men and women who, if they are energized, can move the agenda forward. Whether that agenda is in the direction of education, whether that agenda is in the direction of agriculture, whether that agenda is in the direction of ensuring that we reap the dividends of the fourth industrial revolution or 5G, whether that agenda is in ensuring that we revolutionize our systems of governance, we have young men and women who are capable of achieving it. And whether that agenda is in ensuring that we improve intra-African trade, whether that agenda is in ensuring that we collaborate more and collapse our boundaries so that we don't have unviable little countries, we have the ingredients. And this particular crisis has provided us with an opportunity for introspection. We can now introspect. We can now ask ourselves uncomfortable questions that we never dare to ask, because in our lifetimes, we are now confined in our houses and in our different parts of the world, no travel, no movement, and there is no doubt in my mind that going forward, we can achieve it, and that achievement will only be realized through African unity. And let me tell my African kith and kin, we are the only continent in the world, as I speak now, which is still referred even by African scholars in the following terms: Anglophone Africa, to suggest that we are English speaking; Francophone Africa, to suggest that we are French speaking; Lusophone Africa, to suggest that we are Portuguese speaking; Arabophone Africa, to suggest that we are Arab speaking. One of the things that we must do is to decolonize our minds. The African Union has now adopted Kiswahili as the lingua franca for Africa. Let us now move to ensure that Kiswahili is developed as a lingua franca for Africa. And if we embrace Kiswahili sufficiently, in the next 10 years, Kiswahili will be a lingua franca. That does not mean that we do not use our other mother languages. We can use Igbo, we can use Yoruba, we can use Malinke, we can use Fulfude, we can use Kisi, we can use Temne, we can use Mende, we can use Tiv, we can use other languages. We can use Chinyanja and Chichewa and Zulu and Pedi and Isikosa and Eswatini, and use Kikuyu and Kamba and Luganda and Runyankore and Kirwanda. But the truth is that we need a language that will unite us. A friend of mine was telling me that as long as you are not united in language, in terms of commerce, art, and indeed technology, you can only realize so much. And he told me, tongue in cheek, that you remember when God did not want the human race to reach heaven, the first thing that he did was to confuse their languages. And we must learn from God himself that when you want to unite, you've got to have a common lingua franca, which would be the language of commerce and the language of industry and the language of technology. And Kiswahili is already being accepted as such a language. So, brothers and sisters, wherever you are, if you are in Trinidad, you are in Tobago, whether you are in Jamaica or in the United States of America or in Tübingen in Germany or in Paris in France or Nouakchott in Mauritania or Niamey in Niger or Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso or Benin or Lomé in Togo or in Sierra Leone or Monrovia, or you are in Nairobi, Kenya, or you are in Malawi in Lilongwe, or whether you are in Bambane in Eswatini or you are in Maseru in Lesotho, we are all speaking the same language. And this is not the time. This is not the time to apportion blame. There are those of us whose greatest claim to fame is to fault find. Even those of us who dare to come to the public, is not because we know better than everybody else. We simply have the honor and privilege of having this opportunity. We are merely sharing our thoughts in the hope that our thoughts will be cross-pollinated and cross-fertilized by other better thoughts. And when they are so cross-fertilized and cross-pollinated, then in that regard, we will have better ways of achieving what we desire and what we deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you so very much. We are very honored and humbled to be here. And thank you, dear listeners. We're going to open the lines for questions and conversations. But before we open our lines, you have already addressed everything that we had as questions from our own side from the Pan-African Daily TV. But you mentioned in your speech two other very concrete questions that I would still like probably to ask. And one of the questions, Prof, that I would like to ask is that on the 23rd of April, 2020, the joint appeal to which your signatory was also part, amongst other 16 members, appealing to the African Union and its members to intervene on behalf of our brothers and sisters stuck in China. Is it possible for you to just give us a little bit how far this petition went or this appeal and what action is being taken on the ground?
Thank you very much for raising that question. A few of us from across the continent of Africa were moved by the plight of our brothers and sisters, particularly in Guangzhou in China. And we did write a letter to the African Union, and our specific request to the African Union is that some of these individuals were stranded, and we were looking for a country which would accommodate all of them regardless of their nationalities that are defined by these artificial boundaries. And I remember a few of the people who are signatories, like my good friend Robert Chagulanyi, who is otherwise known as Bobby Wine, did write to the Prime Minister of Uganda, Ruhakana Rugunda, asking that the Ugandan government accommodate all these. And unfortunately, this did not happen. The net effect is that the individual African countries have now moved in. I know that the South Africans have been making efforts to evacuate the South Africans who are stuck in Guangzhou. And I also know that the Nigerians are moving in that direction. The Kenyans have also moved in that direction. And I saw that there was a rapprochement. The Chinese came out after they had been called to answer, and the Chinese are now saying that they are going to take care of the Africans in Guangzhou. But you see, I'm not very comfortable because the Chinese are coming out now simply because Africans throughout the world have come out and said that the Chinese have been trying to dehumanize Africans. So that particular petition at least did raise some kind of awareness, even if we did not have countries accepting to accommodate these individuals, but Africans across the world, with some of the much more financially endowed Africans in the United States of America, were prepared to pay for charter planes to bring Africans back to the mother continent if any one country agreed to accommodate them. That did not happen in good time. But I know countries which have been a lot more pragmatic in this regard. Rwanda's Paul Kagame, to his credit, has been very positive in this regard. We have been trying to encourage the government of Guinea-Bissau and the government of Liberia also to be active in this regard. But I'm quite certain from the conversation that I've had from different countries that efforts are being made, even though if those efforts are not in the public arena. So awareness is very critical. Otherwise, our brothers and sisters will continue to suffer, particularly in China.
Correct. Thank you very much. Another question is the issue of these petitions, that we had a very huge feedback, like Africans don't even think that these petitions, like the one you also supported from Dr. Arikana Chikomborikwa, that Africans are saying it's enough time we sign petitions and nothing is going on. Yesterday you said the different parliaments in West Africa, East Africa, they're holding talks. Is it possible probably to just share with us if you have any idea that they are even addressing the agenda of a united Africa?
What I know, let me first of all speak to the petition that was initiated by Dr. Arikana Chikomborikwa, which is still going on. And I am urging Africans to sign that. That is a petition that is addressed to President Xi Jinping. And that petition is not only addressing the question of corona, it is going beyond that. It is talking about the dignity of African. And Dr. Arikana is saying, and I agree with her, that we must ensure that at least 100,000 Africans sign that petition, so that a message is sent to China in no uncertain terms that the African peoples are not happy with China. I've seen the manner, the velvet gloves with which the Chinese envoy is treated by the African Union. You call these individuals and you give them tea and you talk to them as if there was nothing. I would have expected every African country to tell the Chinese that we are going to recall our envoys, and every African country to summon the Chinese envoys, because the Chinese have been misbehaving everywhere in Africa. If they are not misbehaving in Nigeria, they are misbehaving in Kenya. If they are not misbehaving in Kenya, they are misbehaving in Lesotho. If they are not misbehaving in Lesotho, they are misbehaving in South Africa. And they must be called to order, because if they are not called to order, they'll still treat us as if we are children of a lesser God. And I'm very happy that Africans across the continent and in the diaspora are taking this as a matter that deserves attention. The second question that you've asked is there a conversation within the African continent, but by those who have the honor and privilege of occupying political office, about coordinating African efforts? Mm-hmm. I saw a few days ago, under the chairmanship of Issoufou Mahamadou, the president, the current chair of ECOWAS, there was a meeting of all African, West African heads of state, and they said that they must coordinate their activities. I think that is a good thing. I saw the meeting that was chaired by President Paul Kagame for East Africa. There was a meeting from SADC and the Pan-African meeting that was chaired by President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the current chair of the African Union, and they are saying that there is need for coordination. But what one must say, because I think those meetings are being convened for purposes of firefighting, but I think the meetings must be more strategic. I'm not saying that they are not doing anything. If they are doing anything, I'm not aware of it. But it's our duty to remind them that we must think about the post-corona environment. The post-corona environment must mean that there must be greater coordination. Corona is a public health issue, so that if you contain it in Cameroon and you don't talk to Togo, you don't talk to Gabon, you don't talk to Benin, you don't talk to Nigeria, you don't talk to Niger, then the implications do not respect borders. And if you are in East Africa and you don't talk to South Sudan or Burundi or Rwanda or Tanzania or Eritrea or Somalia or Ethiopia, so there is need. But let me tell you, and let me suggest to you, that if we are going to achieve what we desire, our voices must be louder now. They must be more united now, because there is a sense in which post-corona, Africa is going to be left alone. The institutions which were giving us money are not going to give us money. The United States of America will be so concerned with the impact of corona on their own economy that they'll have no money to spare. The IMF will have no money to spare. The World Bank will have no money to spare. The European Union will have no money to spare. Even the Chinese may have no money to spare. All these Asian Exim Bank may have no money to spare. We will have to rely on ourselves. And the beauty of this is that I'm now beginning to see Africans collaborating. When I heard President Rajoelina of Madagascar speaking yesterday in a meeting that was attended by, among others, President Sisi of Egypt, President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya, President Matamela, Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, Kagame, and other presidents, I was very happy because he was explaining that we, the Madagascans, have discovered what we consider to be a solution to the COVID-19 problem. Look at it. And that told me that Africans are beginning to listen to Africans, because as it is now, African leaders cannot travel anywhere. They cannot go to Europe. Even when they are sick, they are stuck in their countries. They cannot send delegations anywhere. We are stuck at home. And perhaps now that we are stuck at home, we are thinking about home and how to improve our homes.
Correct. Thank you very much, Professor. I have two more questions before I open the lines, and these are very strategic in this sense. We from the Pan-African Daily TV and the feedbacks that we're getting from new Pan-Africanists that are getting all this awareness are still concerned about the fact that you, Professor PLO Lumumba, has done everything you can do, from your speeches to everything, and they are asking questions. Do these leaders that you address actually listen, and do they implement or even think about what you are saying, or it's just that it's like another kind of speech making decorations in their ears? And I want to bring back the fact that I think last month before the corona outbreak, you were invited, suddenly invited by President, His Excellency Magufuli of Tanzania, and we were very excited about that news. Could it also be like, yes, it's not just a speech making, but they're actually listening and learning and even asking for advice?
Well, my view is, and I've had the opportunity in the last few years to meet a number of heads of state, and some of the heads of state that I've met, for President Patrick Wamutharika, Professor Patrick Wamutharika in Malawi, who granted me audience about several years ago. And that to me was energizing. I hold no public office. And the fact that he saw it fit to bounce thoughts on him, and I've had the advantage of having a one-on-one conversation with President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda. I've had an advantage of having a conversation with President John Pombe Magufuli of Tanzania. I was one of the key speakers at a forum where President Paul Kagame and President Buhari were. I've had the advantage of addressing a meeting where the Prime Minister, the President of Namibia, Hage Geingob was. So when I look at all these things, the African president that we have now are very intelligent individuals. Mm-hmm. And there is a sense in which what we ought to do is simply to energize them in the right direction. Sometimes we expect instant coffee solution to our problems, but there is no instant coffee solution to our problem. Look at the former French colonies. If you allow me, for example, to give an example of your own mother country in the Cameroons, the French are still alive and well there.
Correct.
And every move that you make, the French will not allow you to move. You look at a country like Burkina Faso, where our good friend Thomas Sankara was making movement. They ensured that Thomas Sankara was assassinated. If you look at right now, I'm told that the French are very unhappy with Senegal because Senegal has started making testing kits for COVID-19. Whether it's true or not, I do not know, but I'm told that the French are not happy. And the net effect, therefore, is that the more we speak, the more, and there are many people speak. You remember when Arikana Chihombori Kwaos talked about the French. Many people criticize Arikana, but one can actually see that there was a cause. It is when Arikana started speaking that the French were now saying that we are now going to abandon the CFA. So that whether you like Arikana or you like what he was saying, there is a sense in which her message was beginning to sink. And there are many other Africans that are talking. You are talking. There are many other Africans that are talking, and their talk is beginning to influence those in positions of authority. And this is our calling. Our calling is to ensure that we keep on shouting from the rooftops. Even when we appear like madmen and women, we must continue in our madness. In fact, Thomas Sankara once said that the things that change human affairs cannot be changed unless we are mad, and unless there is a method to our madness. We must be methodically mad in order to continue in our quest for change.
Correct. Yes, one before last, your foundation, that's one of the questions I think we are going to still have Amos, who is your project manager on the PLO Foundation, tomorrow live here with us. But like this young leadership program that you are coming out, we are seeing it very instrumental as like building the leadership of tomorrow today. What is the agenda actually? Are we making a mistake, or because everybody is just, I think that's the action that we're saying, moving away from just Professor PLO talking about all these things all the time, but he's currently actually doing something. Is it in that light, Professor?
Our duty is to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. And one of the things that we are now doing in our own ways, and I'm also aware that the others are doing even greater things than the thing that we are doing. But speaking for ourselves in the PLO Lumumba Foundation, we are now present in 38 African countries. Correct. And that means we are in the business of energizing an army of young men and women whose duty is to change their societies. They'll be found in agriculture. They'll be found in IT. They'll be found in public speaking. They are spread from Egypt in North Africa to South Africa. They are spread from Mauritania to Cameroon. These are young men and women who are doing great works. And these works, we are also in the business of trying to ensure that we link up with other people who can help the continent of Africa. We are very rich people in Africa. We should be supporting these young men. I know, for example, Tony Elumelu in Nigeria, who is supporting initiatives, and I'm happy that I'm beginning to work with them. Obi Jackson in Nigeria, Aliko Dangote, Patrick Motsepe in South Africa, our own James Mwangi in Kenya, and many other people in the continent of Africa who must now begin to support these efforts. And what we are doing is our contribution. Julius Kambarage Nyerere of Tanzania used to say, don't be a critic whose only claim to fame is to find fault from what others do. Play your part. Play your part. We are playing our part, and others should play their part. Don't be in the business of fault finding. Who among us is without fault? We are all with fault, but we keep on trying and learning from our faults.
Correct. So thank you very much, Professor. I would open up the line for interactions and questions. And I can already see that they're already waiting online to ask some direct questions to you. And while I prepare to open up the lines, one last question that was actually concerning this Kiswahili, because that's one of the key focus of us communicating as one people through this Kiswahili. When the African Union, or you say they have adopted Kiswahili as the official language on the continent, what actually should we understand about that? Does it mean that the curriculum would carry that as a compulsory language in all institutions? I mean, schools starting from secondary schools all over the continent, like it is the case in Germany?
First of all, let me say that at the African Union, there are a number of official languages. The official languages that the African Union now, as I speak, are English, French, Portuguese, Arabic.
Hold on the line.
These are the official languages. Kiswahili has now been adopted as an official language of the African Union. What that means that an African head of state can address the African Union General Assembly in the Kiswahili language. But the significance of that is that if Africans now want a language that is of African origin, Kiswahili lends itself. I saw a friend of mine asking, why can't we use the Herero or the Ovambo or the Nama or all those languages will not die. We are simply saying that if you look at the Kiswahili language and the level,
reduce your volume.
The Kiswahili language has now reached a stage where technologically it has sufficient vocabulary. It is spoken more.
Hold on, please. I'll take your call.
And that is my understanding. And in the fullness of time, we now begin to teach it. The South Africans are now beginning to teach Kiswahili. That is a good thing. That does not mean that we kill all the others. All the others will remain. Alexona and Isindebele, Isizulu, Isikosa will still remain, but Kiswahili will become a lingua franca, perhaps not in your lifetime and in my lifetime, but in 2 years' time, we can have a language that we can say, this is the language that is spoken from Freetown in Sierra Leone to Asmara in Eritrea, and from Durban in South Africa to Tunis in Tunisia.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And now the lines are open, and we're going to take the first caller and the first question. Please direct short questions, and the professor would answer you. Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clean and clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. First of all, thank you, our sister Suna, and thank you for Professor Lumumba for this very good conversation, and start to telling us the background of Pan-Africanism, and he telling us how can we develop our country or our continent. I mean, I am from Sudan. Actually, in Sudan we have the problem. Our people in Sudan, they are not, connecting with the issue of Africa because the barrier of language that we have. For so long period of time, we have been adopting Arabic language as a system of country, and the issue of Africa, the majority of intellectuals, they used to tackle the issue of Africa by in French or in English, and it is the majority of Sudanese people, they don't speak English in order to participate. My question is to Professor Lumumba. We are only a few voices who used to share our other friends from Africa, to tackle with them, to speak to them what happened in Sudan, how the Sudanese people, they used to think in order to develop Africa, and this is not quite enough. What I want to ask Professor Lumumba, how do you see the Sudanese people or Sudanese contribution in developing African country or African continent or African issues? And the other thing is that there was many crimes what took place in Sudan, particularly the genocide in Darfur. I haven't, heard any more from the our friends from the Africa. They tackled this issue seriously because this is the biggest crime since the crimes of Rwanda. There's no more genocide after that, but the crime what happened in Darfur, this was a very, very big problem. And the thing that I would like to ask again, what kind of language that we use as African in general? We leave the Arabic and leave the, if you speak Arabic, we can be Arabophone. If you speak English, we'll be Anglophone. If you use French, we become Anglophone or Francophone. We need the African language that use all the African to develop and to make progress the Africa according to African language.
Okay.
This is my question. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Prof. Hold on, I'll pick your call. Hold on.
Kiswahili language as a language, and the Arabs can also be part. Arabic can be part of a language that is also, you can have several official languages. In South Africa, we know that they have several official languages. There is nothing that is inconsistent there. Within the European Union, they have nearly 27 languages. But we are saying that if there is one dominant language of commerce and industry, like today, whether the French like it or not, the language of aviation is English.
Correct.
Whether the French like it or not, English is the language of commerce. In fact, I dare say that even in Africa, we now speak better than the English themselves. So there is a sense in which we have gotten the language, but Kiswahili is important because it will give us African pride. There is a sense in which you need to have that pride that we are speaking your language, but we also have our own language. And this is the kind of thing that we want to do with Kiswahili. And I think Sudan must look south. Sudan must think of joining the East African community, because I think that is your natural ally. With South Sudan having come into the East African community, that is where you must go. Because part of the problem that I have with the Arab North or the Maghreb is that sometimes they are undivided. They are like the bat. They are neither birds nor animals. When it is convenient, they are Arabs. When it is convenient, they are African. They must make a choice. People like Ahmed Ben Bella in Algeria, or Gamal Abdel Nasser, or Habib Bourguiba in their early days were beginning to be very clear that we belong to the African continent, but we are denying our Arab roots. We can be good Africans and good Arabs. But when you are undecided, then you are like a double agent. Nobody trusts you. The Arabs don't trust you, and the Africans don't trust you. We merely tolerate you. So you must make a decision. And Prime Minister Hamdok, who himself is your current Prime Minister and is very exposed, is a person whom I believe can appreciate the right direction to take.
Correct. Thank you very much. We're going to take this other call. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please. Go ahead. What is your question?
Yes. My name is Lloyd. Why I'm calling, I just wanted to... Hello?
We are listening, please. Go ahead.
Hello. Yes, my name is Lloyd. I'm from Malawi. I just wanted to say well done to Professor Lumumba for work he's doing. It's a great job, and there's so much things that he's doing. And then I heard him speaking to the I heard him speak about the meetings with the presidents, several presidents. Like he spoke to one of the presidents who's Malawi, my president. But from understanding, looks like he's not doing much to make changes to improve. And then I heard that when he was in Malawi, Professor Lumumba, he gave a speech to the accountants, and then he spoke things like he doing our own things. Like, for example, Malawi is well known for the fish. You could do that with, like, say, like McDonald's thing, that the way he did, because there's a special fish which is not found nowhere else in the world than in Malawi itself. And then, like, you need the other presidents now.
I get this question. You know, I get your question. When I was in,
okay. He is answering. Can you listen? Hello. He has heard your question. Please, Lloyd.
Lloyd, I get your point. You know, there is a sense in which the presidents of Africa have their own advisors. So,
Lloyd, go ahead.
I let Lloyd go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Professor.
I hear Lloyd, and I'm quite aware right now that, for example, in Malawi, there is contestations about the elections and that kind of thing. And I have no doubt in my mind that the Malawians will solve their own problems. As an outsider, when you come to Malawi, one of the things that I said when I was in Malawi, in fact, I was in Malawi in the month of March. That is not when I met President Wamutarika. I met President Wamutarika 3 years ago. But what I said when I was in Malawi last, I said that Malawi has many opportunities. Take, for example, and it's not about some kind of fish which is only found in Lake Malawi called chambo. And I was saying that the Malawians have not done enough to ensure that that becomes a product that is unique. The Chinese, or rather the Japanese are famous for their sushi. Why can't Malawi be famous for chambo? Why must we have McDonald's and Subway and all this Burger King and KFC in Africa? If we had our own foods, and there is no shortage of good food across the continent of Africa, these are the kind of things that could energize our economies in a totally different way. And the unique thing that I see as I travel across Africa and I meet men and women who are several times more intelligent than I can claim to be, is how do African governments use these individuals? You are out there in Europe, and if you go through Europe, if you want some of the best doctors, you find them there. We train them in Africa, then because we don't take care of them, they run to Europe. We have nurses, we have business people. African leaders must now remember that you cannot ignore the diaspora. In fact, I want to say that the diaspora is in a very unique position as we speak now, because they have had the advantage of interacting with other civilizations. And in many countries, diaspora remittances is sometimes the highest foreign exchange earner, supporting their economies in their mother countries.
Correct.
If there was a deliberate effort by African governments to use the talent that is in the diaspora and mix it with the talent that is in our home countries, we would be amazing. I was very disappointed the other day when Nigeria welcomed Chinese doctors to help in the fight against COVID.
Correct.
They could have invited Nigerian doctors who are in London, Nigerian doctors who are in New York. The largest population of doctors anywhere outside of Nigeria is to be found in Europe and America, and they are Nigerians. And we go to Chinese who can't even speak our language. We don't even know what they are administering. In fact, I'm now reading that only 5% of the kits given to us by China for COVID-19 are actually worthy. We are not asking what China is dumping in Africa and what intentions they have. So, Lloyd, I hear you. We can do a lot. Malawi must no longer depend on tobacco, because tobacco is only going to be consumed by British American tobacco. Malawi demonstrated during the presidency of Mbingu wa Mutharika. When Mbingu wa Mutharika served in Malawi during his first term, he said that we are going to deal with food security. And you are Malawi and you know better than I. There was a bumper harvest in Malawi, and even in Kenya, we imported maize from Malawi, which tells you that it can be done. If you go to Botswana now, Botswana is one of the few countries on the continent of Africa that has had a budget surplus. In Botswana, they are now adding value to their diamond. The same is happening to Namibia. It means that we can do this. You go to Mozambique and Tanzania, there is natural gas. You go to Angola, there is oil. You go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, there is rare earth, which is used in every form that we are using. What we need to do is that our political leaders must now respect our scientists, and they must listen more to professionals and people who mean well for the continent of Africa.
Thank you very much, Professor. We're going to take this other call. Hello? 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 Yes, please, can you turn off the volume behind you each time you make a call?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, hi. Thank you, Professor Lumumba. I have followed you for a very long time. I am a student in America. I teach in New York. And I do agree with you. We do need a common language. And I think most people don't understand that the Kiswahili really wasn't an empire language. It was actually a trade language. And doing a transatlantic split, it was actually stop to, because they understood that the cohesiveness of language could actually have a great revolution in Africa. And so that's why mainly slaves were taken from West Africa and not Eastern Africa, because Eastern Africa already had a cohesive language, and that was the Kiswahili language. And so it was easy for them to take slaves from West Africa, because there was not a one single language within those group of people. I also want to say, I had a question about the petition, because I know I have spoke to this about people in my community that we all have to get on the platform to really scream and to push our leaders for ourselves, because we have not done that. You know, everyone else has pushed our leaders for their own agenda, and we need to. So my question is, when we start petition, because some of us started in our community, and we, you know, of course, we share the major.
We didn't get the
yeah, because other people keep just calling, and they oh my goodness,
we can get it out of context, the question. I hope, yeah, we can get the question out of the context.
Yeah Okay,
she's still on.
She's calling back.
Yeah, let her call back so that we get the full flavor of the question.
All right, please, can you just call orderly? And I said out there, don't call direct, because you're going to throw others off, and you're just doing the same thing all the time. Please let me pick up her call. This is impossible. Please just give her a chance. Okay, let's take this one. She will call back, Professor. Hello?
Yeah, but if Susan, if I understood her well,
yes,
she was simply agreeing with me, and I believe with many that I see raising questions, that having a common language is a very powerful thing. And if a deliberate effort is made and we begin to talk about the language, there is a sense in which we can unify the continent in a very unique way. And I think that decision has already been made. And our duty is now to energize our institutions of higher learning and other institutions such as primary schools to begin to instruct people in this language, initially as languages which is taught. And I say that, you know, what is now happening in many African universities is that we are having Confucius centers, and the Chinese are beginning to tell us that we must learn Mandarin. And the middle class in Africa are moving into the Mandarin language. My view is that we must focus on Kiswahili. The other question that you are asking, and I hope I got you, because the tail end of it perhaps I did not get, but the petitions. The reason why these petitions are necessary, the petitions touch people's conscience. And even if there is no action on the petition, sometimes when we do these petitions, there appears to be nothing, and some of us get fatigued and we say, this is just another petition we are signing. But the more we sign this petition, the more we recruit men and women of goodwill, and the more we inundate leadership with this petition, the more we begin to irritate them, and the more we irritate them, the more we then make them to think that there is an issue that ought to be addressed. That, I think, is the purpose of the petition. Sometimes those who are the recipients of the petition don't even act. Remember that when Africa was struggling, many African countries were struggling for independence, these people who wielded power did not even care about the many voices that were being raised. But as Fidel Castro of Cuba once said, you keep on knocking the door. You don't know when the door will give way. You keep knocking. You keep
Correct.
knocking. You keep knocking. You don't know which blow will actually fling the door open. So keep on knocking, keep on knocking, keep on knocking. That is our duty. And the knocking exercise is intergeneration. One generation knocks, and another one knocks, and another one knocks, and another one knocks, and lo and behold, the combined effort will bring the door ajar.
Okay, let's take this other one, Professor. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello. Yes, good evening. My name is Samuel.
Yes. Hello. Okay, we lost him. Let's take this other one. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Turn up the volume behind you. Please watch. If you call, make sure you turn the other device. If not, we're going to be hearing ourselves. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, my sister. Professor, thank you. I thank you for your time. I've been following you for years now. And I want to say something concerning three things. You said some things about language in Africa, which is very good. I want to. Hello.
Hello, we're listening.
Okay. I want to say some things about this because it's very, very important. And I also understand that you have been talking so much about the border closing in Africa. I don't know how many meetings you have been having in African leaders about the border in Africa. Number two, last year Nigeria signed a contract to use one currency called ECO. I don't know how soon they can be, because according to the agreement, they're supposed to start to use ECO with about 18 countries, which is West Africa. But right now, it seems like what they do is not ready to put it in effect. And we also worried about this. Secondly, you said something about Chinese in Africa in Chinese. Professor, I thank you so much for pushing that so far, but I can tell you I'm living in China, working here. It's very hard right now. Some of our people are not able to get back to their houses, and some of them are still on the road as I'm talking to you. It's very difficult. I'm believing that very soon we will be able to go back to our different continents, because I know the Nigeria, Kenya, in every part of Africa country have enough resources. When you say something about that after pandemic, there will be no money to borrow to any African continent. Believe me, Professor, I'm so happy. I wish every Europe country in white supremacy would refuse to give any African money, because Africa, until Africa know that the solution in Africa is in Africa, it's not in Europe, it's not in China.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Can he respond? Because others also want. Yeah, thank you. Let him respond. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Professor.
Thank you very much. At least we are hearing somebody who is actually on the ground in China, and that I think 100 times more than you and me can speak. He's telling us about the real situation in China, and I think I can't agree with him more on that particular issue. And he's raised the question of the eco. You know, when the leaders met in South Africa and they were led by the Nigerian, it was said that 14 African countries would use eco. The idea was that we would begin, and at least that is how I understood it, that West Africa would begin to use eco, and lo and behold, in East Africa, we are also moving towards a unitary union. You'll have one common shilling, and then we would have a common currency in Central Africa, and in the Southern Africa, we'd also have a common currency, possibly pegged on the rand, and ultimately, in a few years' time, all these currencies would merge into a single currency. But very quickly, the French hijacked the eco. And what they did was to use the eco and to say, and they recruited 8 French-speaking countries and said, we are now changing the CFA franc to the eco. That is not the eco that the West African countries were thinking about. And that must tell you how pernicious and how dangerous the French neocolonial project is. And if we move without being conscious about how dangerous the French neocolonial project is as pernicious as the Chinese. Remember that if the French do not receive nearly 500 billion shilling, or rather francs that they receive, as has been articulated before, then France would, in the next 50 years, be no better than many African countries. So it is in their best interest that they disrupt our activities. But I hope that the West African leaders led by Ghana and Nigeria, and of course, I hope that Cote d'Ivoire will rethink their position through President Alassane Ouattara, and I hope that Macky Sall in Senegal will also think differently. I hope that the other little countries in that region like Gambia and Liberia and Sierra Leone will move on with the real eco. On the question of the borders, I know that there was a time when there was the closure of border between Ghana and Nigeria, and I think that Nigeria, as the big brother in that region, for whatever reason, Nigeria should always be out there to protect the smaller nations in that area, because it is the big brother. Whether we like it or not, there will always be an anchor country, and the anchor country in that region is Nigeria, not only because of our resources, or natural resource, but because of the human resource. You tell me, in which profession don't you find a Nigerian? From astrophysics to medicine to law to commerce, Nigerians are everywhere and at the top of the food chain. So Nigeria must play the leadership role in that regard going forward.
Okay, we're going to get this other one from Angola. Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Hello? Good evening, Susan.
Yes.
Hello?
We are listening to you. Go ahead. We are listening.
Okay. Very good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
African, and yes, I'd like to thank, first of all, Professor Lumumba. I really admire him from 20 years now, since I was a student then when I was in Kenya in Kenya. I really admire him, and I'm calling from Angola. And I'm following him, and then I've joined the PLO Lumumba Foundation. I have, first of all, to greet and also to congratulate him for this African initiative that we really need in our continent and support him in everything. I have two questions. First question is, how can we understand that the WHO does not recognize our African remedy while we have the general director who is an African? What is going on? Are they for lives in the world, or are they working for the money? If is there any solution anywhere in the world to save lives, why don't they support these initiatives so that more lives be saved in the world, in Africa? That's the first question. The second question is moving to Lusophone speaking countries. I think we as Angolan, we have the most tied hands with Chinese because of our government policies. According to the professor's view, what can Angola do so that our leaders can they can rely on their resources? We have water, we have oil, we have diamonds, we have all resources in Angola. How can we work so that we rely on our resources apart from asking always money from China and the West, the World Bank, the FMI, all these? So those are my questions, and I'm very happy for that, and we are connected and tuned in this channel.
Thank you very much. Let me start with Susan, if I can.
Yes, go ahead, Prof.
You know, Angola is in a very unique position, but Angola, with the drop in the oil prices, countries such as Angola, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon are going to suffer because oil has now been affected by the COVID environment. But Angola has something to share with Africa. And I'm very impressed by the current president of Angola because he's been trying to integrate into the continent. Many of us who are observers will have observed that the president of Angola was at the center of negotiating and understanding between Rwanda and Uganda, which is a good thing. We are also aware that Sonangol is already working to share their experiences in the oil industry in different parts of Africa, because Sonangol has been engaged in oil more than many African countries. So Angola has an opportunity to be a great influence, and they must start initially. Angola must influence activities in Namibia, which is in their immediate neighborhood. I was a little disappointed a few months ago when the Angolans were chasing away the people from Democratic Republic of Congo. And these are some of the African problems. But I hold the view that we are now beginning, and many of the so-called Lusophone countries are now beginning to integrate into Africa a lot more. The Mozambicans are now very much a part of the SADC region. And indeed, Angola is also very much a part of the SADC region, and Luanda is becoming more accessible to people. And I think that in the next 10 years, the integration will be a lot more deepened a lot more. And I think that Angola will play a great role in that region. On the question of the WHO is an important organization in public health sector. And the truth is that the WHO only provides guidelines. I don't think the WHO has monopoly of knowledge. Africa has our own centers for disease control, and these centers for disease control are created by the African Union. And even if you go below the African Union, our individual countries also have their centers for disease control. And I am being told that the WHO have not verified this information, but it's been going around in the social media that the World Health Organization is suggesting that the cure that is being suggested by the Madagascar is not a real cure because it has not followed certain protocols. Let me tell you, my own view is when you want to create new things, you will be criticized. You imagine when the Wright brothers came with the first aircraft, which did not fly even for a few meters, mad. Those who are building the pyramid must have been thought mad. If the world does not consider you mad when you come with a new idea, then know that your idea is going nowhere. My own view is that it's the duty of Africans, and I'm very happy with the African countries thus far, that countries are taking the Madagascans seriously, Equatorial Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Tanzania, and I'm happy that heads of state actually gave President Rajoy an opportunity to articulate what they considered to be a discovery, and that is the way to go. We must give our own people the benefit of doubt, and when we do so, we'll help them in improving their research. What we must now be doing is to encourage other research institutes across Africa to study that product more. It's now being sold in bottles. How can we reduce it so that it can come in a tablet form for ease of carrying? That is what we should be struggling about. These are embryonic steps, and these steps are the ones lead into the much firmer adult steps.
Okay, correct. So we're going to take this other call that has been waiting. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening. Yes. First of all, let me start by thanking you for this great input, this great work you're doing, and also express my sincere honor to be on the line with Prof directly. And I have two questions. My name is Samuel. I'm actually from Sierra Leone, but I'm calling in from Rome. My first question is to Prof. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen the world all over is grappling with infodemia. Like a lot of disinformation is going around, and it's also affecting the African continent a lot. And we see most of this happening, like diasporans, you know, going online and writing all sorts of articles and spreading disinformation. So what is your message to those Africans living in the diaspora who sit in the comfort of Western nations and busy themselves defaming their countries, spewing hate and insightful messages that has the tendency to create social disturbances in their own countries back home? And do you agree that Africans back home should be wary of such diaspora compatriots? And my second question to Prof is, Prof, to what degree do you agree that COVID-19 pandemic makes a strong case for a united Africa, considering the opportunity a united Africa will have in areas of resource mobilization and concentration to adequately respond to the pandemic? I thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
My brother from Sierra Leone, based in Rome, and I think the questions are very pertinent and very pointed. Let me start with the very first question about the COVID-19 and the kind of what some experts sometimes describe as infodemics. That beyond the pandemic, we have too much information, and some of this information is not even verified. And that is why I think it is very critical, because all of us now have these gadgets. And because we are locked down and we are at home, one piece of information goes round and without verification is creating unnecessary panic. And I think that this is undesirable. My own view and my own modus operandi is that I don't circulate information unless I have verified and I know what the of that information is. For example, when somebody says the WHO has said this, it is very easy to verify what the WHO said, what the WHO has not said. So we must be very wary, because the net effect of what we do is that we create unnecessary panic. And when we create unnecessary panic, then it doesn't help anybody. And of course, those of us, our brothers who are outside of the continent, there is a sense in which sometimes the information that you receive, it may not be verified information. You are in the same bracket as we are. When, for example, we had this issue of China when it arose, one of the very first things that we did was to ensure that we speak to people who are actually on ground zero. And you don't rely on one person, one source. You speak to about 5 sources, and you have 5 of you speaking to 5 different sources, and you are then able to say that we have credible information from ground zero, and that this information deserves to be acted upon. And indeed, when we then became public about it, nobody could contradict us, because it was true that we had verified the information. So I think it is incumbent upon all of us, because information is power. And those of us who have the ability and the credibility, we must use our credibility in a manner that ensures that we don't abuse and don't create unnecessary panic. And none of us has the monopoly of knowledge or wisdom. It is always good to verify from somebody who knows better than we do, or who has better information than we have. And if we do that, I think we are all going to be our brothers and sisters keepers. The last question that you've asked is about the unity of Africa. I think that Africans are beginning to recognize that. And not only beginning to recognize that, I know all of us are in different fora which describe themselves as Pan-African forums. And all these forums, I now am beginning to see a convergence of opinion, that we have debated for too long, we have moralized for too long, we have intellectualized for too long, we have philosophized for too long. This is the time for action. Somebody actually sent me a message from Tanzania the other day. Now is the time for action. And what action is being taken, and there are 2 levels of acting. There is the level of acting in our own small corners. Those will only have limited impact. But there is the level of energizing our own government so that they begin to move in the right direction. And any one of us who has access to people in government or in private sector or in any other sectors, this is the time to begin to work to ensure that our ideas are not only in fora such as this, but that they begin to gain traction in the governance structures that exist in our countries. And I think that you who are in the diaspora, if you are sufficiently organized because of the money that you send home, there is a sense in which you can actually influence decision makings in your respective countries. So unity is coming. And as I said a little earlier, and forgive me for repeating this, many countries are now beginning to realize that even those who are our benefactors are not going to have the money to give us, and that we've got to look inwards. And if we recognize that necessity is the mother of creation, Africans are going to look inward. The very fact now that we are using our own resources, even in the pharmaceutical sector, is indicative of the path that we are going to follow. And the very fact that we are now using and consuming foods that are made and grown in our own countries is indicative. But the people that we have to grapple with, I hope that our politicians are learning lessons in this regard, because our politicians must now know there'll be no foreign visits. Our politicians must now know there'll be nobody to borrow from. Our politicians must now know that in order to pay your doctors and your civil servants, you've got to use your resources efficiently. And if they recognize that, then it is going to be very useful. I want to answer a question which is being posed by Al-Nur Adam. He's asking whether I can explain more about coronavirus in African country. And I think corona, this has been explained, but let me hazard that coronavirus is a virus which, fortunately for the moment, I think that we have not borne the brunt of corona in the manner that has been experienced in countries such as Italy and Europe and the United States of America. But that is no reason for us to lower our guards. We have a duty to ensure that we deal with public health issues, because this is not the last pandemic that we are going to deal with. We are going to confront many other pandemics, which we are not receiving reports. We've been receiving reports from countries such as Chad, Niger, Mauritania, Mali, Eritrea. We want to know what is happening in those countries, because we don't want any of our African countries to disappear in the black holes.
Correct. Yeah, good. Next question. Hello.
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 Hello, we're listening.
Hi. Good evening. I'm calling from Ethiopia. Basically, I would like to thank you to Susan, and then I would like to thank you, Professor Patrick Lumumba. My question is, I've got two questions to Professor Patrick Lumumba. The first question is, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the first question, I've been following Professor Patrick Lumumba for quite a long time. I've never seen him been invited by Ethiopian government or any university by Ethiopians or anything like, you know, universities or education or anything like that. But why he hasn't been in Ethiopia? What's the reason he hasn't been in Ethiopia? Why he's not being invited, or he's not interested to be in Ethiopia? I need to get answer from that question. But the second question, at the moment in Ethiopia, I think we got a good leader.
Yes.
But he's got a problem, but political leader. He's got a problem, but political leader. They try to affect him. They try to stop him what he's doing. It's not only the political leaders, the activists, you know, the people who live in Europe, the people who live in America, sort of like that. They hasn't given him a chance. So in that reason, he cannot doing the work what he's doing at the moment in Ethiopia. We have, in my opinion, we have a good leader. So has he, Professor Patrick Lumumba, I just want to know how he's going to look, the Ethiopian president at the moment. If he can, that will be the very good thing to get answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Ethiopian Prime Minister. Prime Minister Abiy, I think, is one of the most progressive leaders in Africa now, in terms of his daring. And we have seen some of the things he has done with a view to, of course, I'm not Ethiopian, but from what I know, what he has been doing in terms of creating the rapprochement between Ethiopia and Eritrea, the rapprochement between Ethiopia and Djibouti, the attempts at intervening in Sudan and in South Sudan. And I'm also aware of the economic activities that have been taking place in Ethiopia. And I'm aware of how the Ethiopian government actually reacted very quickly in terms of responding to COVID-19. I'm also aware of what the airline, in fact, the only airline that is now working in Africa in the cargo arena is the Ethiopian airline, is the one that is moving good. So there is a sense in which you have a good leadership. But remember that when you are doing good things, the nature of human beings is that you attract negativity. There will be no shortage of people who want to bring you down. And they want to bring you down because they themselves would have wanted to be doing the things that you are doing, and therefore they envy you, or they want to bring you down simply because they don't want you to do good things so that history may not remember you. And what you need to do, having identified the Prime Minister is good, is to support him. But he also must remember that when you are in a position of leadership, you only expect to be criticized. And if praised by anybody, you must be very surprised. The second question, this first question that you asked, I've actually been in Ethiopia. I was in Bahir Dar, and I was at the University of Addis Ababa. Perhaps you did not know, and the local government university. But next time round I come, I hope I'll be more publicized. But I'm in Ethiopia at least twice every year.
And to add to that, we're also having the PLO Lumumba Foundation coordinator from Ethiopia. So I think that would also, you know, add to the fact that you'll be frequent in Ethiopia, Prof. Let's take this other question. Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. Professor, how are you? How are you, Professor?
I'm very fine.
Thank you so much. This is Kelvin calling from Zambia.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question, Professor.
Yeah.
What's your take, or how is Pan-Africa going to help countries that are exhibiting too much corruption? how is Pan-Africa going to help such countries, or how is it going to come? What's your take on that one when it comes to countries that are exhibiting too much corruption? Thank you so much.
That is a very pointed question. History has demonstrated that the level of corruption is also supported by the level of its tolerance by the population. If the population of a country tolerates corruption, then corruption will thrive. So there is also a duty on the part of the citizens to ensure that when people engage in corruption, then they are ostracized. But you see, what is going to happen now, even if you wanted to engage in corruption and you wanted to hide your money in Macau or in the United States of America or in Switzerland, you will not get visas to go there. And we have seen in the recent past that even those who were hiding money in those countries such as Abacha and Mobutu and others, that money is being taken back to their countries. So corruption is no longer a very useful enterprise. And many people are beginning to learn that. Yeah. And the more we talk about African unity, and the more we have our resources diminishing, the more vigilant the people are going to be. And you can see the vigilance of the people across the continent of Africa. If you look at the levels of scrutiny, and I've seen the levels of scrutiny across the continent of Africa, just during COVID, when people are donating private money to governments in Nigeria, the Nigerians are questioning. Whether in Kenya, they are questioning. In Uganda, they are questioning. In South Africa, they are questioning. So people are now beginning to be extra vigilant. And if any political leader is not going to remove his or her hands from the cookie jar, then they're going to find that the world is a very difficult place to live in. So corruption undermines democracy, corruption undermines social cohesion, corruption undermines the economy, and is an evil that we must fight. And I believe all of us have a reason to fight it.
Correct. Next question. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. You're talking to John Mumo from Kenya.
Okay. Welcome.
Yes, John Mumo, it's one of the great people that came with an innovation of monitoring the COVID-19 system.
Yes.
And number one is to congratulate and to say a big thank you to Professor PLO Lumumba, and I greet him in Kiswahili. Habari ya jioni, Professor.
Habari bwana Mumo.
I want to say that what Professor is saying, it's very prominent, but I will also have one very brief question. Understanding that Africa it's producing the best international standards, products that meet international standards, but still you find that it's very difficult for our people to feel free to consume them and to embrace them. Sure. And for instance, even our innovation that we did, a system that is even helping people do their self-assessment to know whether they've been exposed to COVID-19. But still you find that we have Africans having a doubt on the same. Moving forward, my great question to Professor is, what will be a permanent cure for inferiority complex?
Okay.
The vaccine against inferiority complex is self-confidence. That is the vaccine, and that is why we talk about Africans must believe in themselves. Media such as this, the kind of platform that we have in terms of exchange, we would never get this platform on CNN. We would never get this platform on BBC. We would not get it on Radio Deutsche Welle. We would not get it on Radio France. We would not get it on any radio. So this kind of medium is the kind of medium that we want to go, so that when we are saying our things that are germane to the African continent, we can express ourselves as Africans, and we don't have news that is skewed in a direction that is showing the sum of the picture as a country that has the capacity to produce good men and women and natural resources and other resources, including human resources. So this is the beginning that we have belief in ourselves. And I'm seeing quite a number of questions that are being raised online. They are and comments that are being made, and they are being made from Gambia, from Chad, from Sudan, from Eritrea. You can see that Africans are energized in a totally different way. And I hold the view that when we begin to do things that are unique to ourselves, I hope that after COVID-19, Africans will no longer import second-hand clothes from any part of the world. We are not going to consume what Europe and America have rejected. And when we stop importing second-hand clothes, it means that we can now begin to work on our textile industries. I hope that Africa is now going to think about solar energy. And I'm happy that in Namibia, they are already doing solar energy. And I'm happy that in Uganda, they have actually developed a prototype of a solar bag. And when we do all these things, I have no doubt in my mind we'll begin to consume things that are African, and it will energize our self-pride. It can be done. We must believe in ourselves. And when we do this, the movement will not be from Gambia to Italy, or from Niger to Italy, or from Burkina Faso to France, or from the Democratic Republic of Congo to Matonge in Brussels. It will be from Democratic Republic of Congo to Niger. It will be from Niger to Lomé, from Lomé to Porto Novo, from Porto Novo to Freetown, from Freetown to Lilongwe, within the continent of Africa, so that African resources will be used within the continent of Africa. That, in my view, is the only cure for inferiority complex, decolonizing our minds and believing that we are as good as anybody else because we are.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. We're going to take the next question. Hello?
Yes, hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello. My name is Joy Tens, the founder of African Women in Europe. I'm calling from Germany and I am from Kenya. I want to thank Professor PLO Lumumba for being there for us where he is right now and explaining to us, especially the diaspora, because I'm in the diaspora and have a community that we run. And I have noticed that in Africa, basically also, I'm going to talk about my own country where I'm working in Kenya. We've noticed that the diasporans have not been recognized so much or appreciated or even recognized when they're going to invest in the country. What I'm coming out from, because you're from Kenya, you understand the circles that have been started. So the diaspora, we are all starting to get the diaspora who are very aggressive to come to the continent and invest collectively, knowing that we have been sending money in Africa. We have noticed it's like a hole, the money just go in and we cannot really trace where our money went. So right now we are also working with the country, Kenya, going back in and starting our own circle. We are more action takers. So, but when we get there, we are finding a lot of barriers which we cannot, there's corruption, which we know it's already existing there. We are having issues with being treated like diaspora as well, like European prices go up. And the other part that I want to mention is that we are coming in as investors in the country. So you find the taxes are very high, and sometimes you find even the government asking other countries to come to invest in the continent. I'm talking about European countries or other countries around. You find they are coming in and being waived off some interest. This opportunity should be given to the diaspora as well, as much as they're Kenyans. We should be given this opportunity. So my question is, how do you see how the diaspora can get the courage to come into the continent and still fight and try to get into the continent and invest, as we are as ready as never before, and we need the continent to be ready for us. How can you encourage us from that end?
Joy, I hear you. One of the reasons why this conversation is very important at this particular time is that all of us believe that COVID has given us an opportunity to think very differently. You already know money in the billions, and I think you are possibly the second highest foreign exchange earner apart from tourism, which is now dead. Tourism is going to be dead and is not going to be resuscitated for the next 3 years. I'm aware that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and you're also aware, did create a desk for the diaspora, but there is still a sense in which we can do better. I still think that there are too many hurdles on the way of the people who want to invest. I don't think you have sufficient tax holidays. In this regard, the country to look at is Rwanda. Rwanda has done beautifully in terms of welcoming her diaspora. Ethiopia is also very big in this regard, in the manner in which they deal with the diaspora. If you look at the Grand Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia, the diaspora, Ethiopians in the diaspora have contributed in a major way. So Kenyans had better style up. And this is the time. This is the time for you to address the Kenyan embassy in Germany and the Minister for Foreign Affairs and the Minister for Trade, and by extension, the President of Kenya, to tell him that post-COVID, the thing that they call foreign direct investment, there'll be no foreigner investing in Kenya. Foreigners will be busy repairing their countries. The Italians will be repairing their country, the Spaniards and the Germans, and it is only Africans and Kenyans in the diaspora that are going to deal with this question. I see that the same question is being asked also by a friend of mine from Namibia, Agostino Ngombe, and it's the same kind of response that I must give to you. Forward, we must treat our diaspora the way it should be treated. It's the goose that lays the golden egg. And you have such a goose, you don't slaughter it so that you get eggs before they are laid. You give it more food so that it may lay more eggs. And that is the kind of thing. And when we talk about it, giving it more food, make business easier to conduct, ensure that the registration processes are easy. And I've already said, this is not rocket science. In Rwanda, you can go into the company registry in the morning, and within 2 hours, you have registered a company and you have opened a bank account. And if you want to meet a government minister in Rwanda, you can go to Rwanda in the morning, and if you have a trade problem, and you can meet the Rwandese minister in 30 minutes. I have gone to countries. I have gone to countries, and I'm not a national of those countries. Even Nigeria, which has problems, you can go to Nigeria and meet some of these individuals within 2 days. In Rwanda, within hours. In Uganda, within hours. In Tanzania, within hours. In our country, sometimes it can take weeks, but it depends on minister to minister. So what one is saying is that we must style up and don't give up hope, because we are now going into a new dispensation, a post-corona dispensation, where people have to think differently.
Correct. This one is from South Africa. Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello?
Hello?
Yes, you are speaking to Lesedi from South Africa, Johannesburg.
Yes, welcome on the show, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to say hi to Professor Lumumba.
Yes, go ahead.
The question is about the Agenda 2063.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, why did our leaders chose that year, 2063? I feel like 2063, the Chinese would have infiltrated Africa. I feel like 2063 is very far.
2063 is only far for you and me, who are mortals. In the life of a nation and in the life of a continent, that is a very short period. But my understanding is that Agenda 2063 is not that we are waiting for 2063. We are simply saying that by 2063, all the things that we are promising ourselves will have been achieved. It means some things will be achieved in the first 5 years, some will be achieved in the first 10 years, some in the first 15 years, others in 20 years, others in 25 years, and others in 30 years. In my view, it is a very realistic approach, because if you look at your own life, even by the age you are 50, you still wish that you are given another 50 years so that you are 100. So in my view, 2063 is a goal. And if you look at the life of a nation, that is a very short period. And I think that if we guard ourselves against the machinations of China or France or any one of these neo-colonial powers, it is a good period within which we can solve all our not all, but move to solve most of our African problems, so that the continent is better integrated. And these things, the things that we are promising ourselves, are not going to be achieved in your lifetime or in my lifetime. These are intergenerational issues. Today we are discussing the ideas of Nkrumah and the ideas of Mwalimu Nyerere, and I'm sure when they died, they thought that this enterprise was not going to be achieved. We are the latter-day Nkrumahs, the latter-day Nyereres, the latter-day Samora Machels. So every generation plays its part and passes over the baton to the next generation. So it is, and so it must be.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. We have to take this one from UK. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, my sister.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear us?
Me, please?
Yeah, go ahead. We are listening.
Yeah, my name is Anzanse. I'm calling from UK, Ghanaian by origin. Yeah, I thank you very much, my sister, for this wonderful work for Mother Africa. And then our professor, he has been an inspiration to most of us, the younger ones. We wish him to have a long life. Yeah, Professor talk about Nigeria being the big brother of West Africa, to some extent, the entire Africa. I just wanted to know from Professor, we're talking about the unity of Africa, which most of us will wish to see in our lifetime. But there's a lot of insecurity currently in Africa. The Sahel region that Professor talked about, Boko Haram, and then Al-Shabaab, all these groups that are causing insecurity in Africa. I wanted to find out from Professor, what can Africa do to tackle this insecurity? Because Boko Haram is there stabilizing Nigeria, which is a big brother of Africa. What should the ECOMOG, the West African community, do to be able to tackle Boko Haram? And also, what should the entire Africa do to be able to come to tackle the security issue in Africa? Because without security, I think this unity that we're talking about is going to be really difficult.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's not, you are asking the question at a time when the African Union has actually declared the year 2020 as the year of silencing the guns. The truth is that the guns will not be silent, and the guns will not be silent because I hold the view that some of the fundamentals are not being addressed. In the entire Sahelian region, you and me know that we have what is sometimes called the African Al-Qaeda. We have Boko Haram, which is very active in that region, in Cameroon, in Chad, in Nigeria, and of course in that particular region and in Mali. We also have the Al-Shabaab, who have been active in Ethiopia, and I think that those are the flashpoints. We also have certain unsettled disputes, such as in the Cameroons. And one is saying that if we are, and I can't agree with you more, as long as we don't deal with conflict, we are not going to have the environment with which we can talk about unity. And I do not pretend to have any serious, any prescription which is a magic bullet. But I hold the view that this particular problem can be sorted out within the ECOMOG, within ECOWAS. You will remember that when there were problems in Sierra Leone and Liberia, when ECOMOG led the particular onslaught against the destabilizing activities between Sade Funkea I think in Liberia and then in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is now relatively peaceful. Liberia is now relatively peaceful. In the Gambia, when Yahya Jammeh did not want to leave power, the powers in that region led by Nigeria and Liberia came out very firmly and clearly and said, you've got to leave. And as we speak, Yahya is in Equatorial Guinea. They destabilized. On the issue of Boko Haram, I think there is a sense in which sometimes one even assumes that there is an external power which wants to ensure that this destabilization continues. We have seen what has happened recently in northern Burkina Faso and what has happened in Central African Republic. And there is, and I'm not saying this on the basis of any concrete evidence, but we must ask ourselves, where are enterprise, and if they are, do African countries merely complain? And I think that the African Union could do a lot more in ensuring that we can solve this problem and solve it effectively. It can be done. It will not be done quickly, but I think that going forward, what we must talk about is to ensure that Africa is united. And one of the things that we must do, as Anse, is to ensure that conflicts are eliminated. The very fact that the African Union said that we must silence the guns was a realization that if you don't silence the guns, then you can't realize your potential. No easy solutions, but we must find solutions.
Correct. We are almost rounding up the program, and I see still too many calls coming in. Yeah, we would not be able to exhaust the calls today. I think, yeah, let's just continue. And Prof, when you are done, please give me a sign, because there are just too many waiting online.
Okay, we will. I think the wisdom of the occasion always said that you stop it when it is good. Because you can never exhaust it. I believe that this is an engagement and a conversation that will continue, whether I'm on the table or not. There will be other Africans of goodwill with knowledge, and we can always have this conversation. It's a conversation that we must keep alive. And my duty, actually, Susan, is to thank you. What you are doing is amazing. When you are doing something like this, sometimes people don't tell you that you are doing an amazing thing. And this is sacrifice, and I think it is good to energize you, continue. This might end up being the true Pan-African television which rivals Al Jazeera and CNN. And that should be your aim.
Thank you very much, Professor. Let's just take these 2 calls, please.
Yes, we will.
We're done. All right. Okay. Thank you. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Frank. I'm from Nigeria. I'm calling from Italy.
Okay, go ahead, Frank.
First, I want to appreciate Professor Lumumba, and I want to let him know that all his comments has been, being in position in energizing almost all the youth in Africa, and I can tell you, almost the youth are waking up, So I really appreciate that's a good job that he's doing. But here I have 2 questions that I would like to throw to him. One is, how will Pan-Africa protect its environment or its body from these corrupt leaders? Because in Africa, the problem of Africa is the corrupt leadership that is, making things or making life miserable for the African citizens. And another one is that because I've listened to so many of his speech where he made mention that he worries about the Chinese. Some days ago, I watched some videos.
Okay.
I got his two questions. I think on the question of the Chinese, what I've been saying consistently, and I think we have now been proved right that there was always need to worry about the Chinese. The Chinese are resource hungry, and as long as they can get resources in Africa, they give us the finance projects which have no value beyond a certain period. And I think that this is the learning period now that we know that the Chinese do not have our best interest at heart. It is our duty to protect ourselves from the machinations of the Chinese. As regards leadership, we who are the followers, we also have a duty. We have a duty to use our powers to ensure that we bring into leadership men and women who can serve as well. And the truth is, sometimes people get the leaders that they deserve. Even in countries in Europe, there were times when in countries like Italy or Spain, there were dictatorial leaders. How many, if you are in Italy, you will remember that not so long ago, just 70 years ago, there was the fascist regime of Benito Mussolini in the neighborhood in Spain, that there was the fascist regime of General Francisco Franco Bahamondes. You'll remember in Romania, there was Nicolae Ceausescu. You'll remember Yugoslavia, and you'll remember all in Europe, there were such leaders, but there were movements, which movements ensured that those leaders were removed. This is what Africa must do to ensure that we create an environment that is poisonous and dangerous to leaders who want to undermine us. And already that is beginning to happen. If you look at many African countries, the leaders who long assumed that they had the monopoly of knowledge and wisdom are being exorcised as if they were ghosts from their own countries, and their countries are beginning to move in the right direction. Our duty is to be eternally vigilant, and those of us who have the platform, it is our duty to raise our voices, even when our voices are not heard in their most eloquent sense. Our voices must remain alive and well at all times.
Thank you very much, Professor. This one has been very, very picky. Hello? Hello, can you hear us? Hello? Okay. Bad luck for you. Oh God, and that's a lady. I really would have loved to get that.
Yes.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, good evening. Sorry, the call went on. Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Good evening, Professor. I would like to first, my name is Tracy. I would like to thank you for the work you've done within and beyond the continent. You really inspire us. I'm really panicking talking to you, but I'll try to put myself under control. I know about your foundation, but I'm not very much aware on what is going on in your foundation. And I've tried to make contact with you. I do have contact with Amos, your PA, and I'll just be brief here. My question today is, how can I support your foundation and also pull different women from the diaspora to support your foundation, especially in the young girl education? I'm very focused on the education of the young girl because they are those that are giving birth, those that are the mothers of the nation. And I'm very, very inspired to focus in that aspect because I believe if the young girls do have education, not just education about our language, the continent, if they are inspired and put into track at early stage, it would prevent early pregnancies. It will make them be more educated from the basics. So how can women like myself, who has, been in a position where I've acquired skills and financially we don't really need to have everything to help, but I believe that every little help in a girl education will make a life changing. What advice, what approach can you advise me and other women listening who are more interested in raising this next generation?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, we'll connect with you more directly offline. But suffice it to say that one of the things that we are trying to do, and we are partnering with another very progressive lady in the United States, originally from Tanzania, called Tausi, with her child survival organization. And what we are trying to do is to work with our representatives in different parts of Africa, we, I think, are very energized young men and women who are specific in this arena as to how we can collaborate and work together. We will come back, we'll come to you tomorrow in great detail, and we identify what we can do, because there are already quite a number of people who are doing things on the ground who are focusing on the role of the girl child. But even as we focus on the role of the girl child, we are also using the occasion to remind the boy child that it is the joint success and survival of both sexes that is going to ensure that we have a holistic society. So we have focused on the girl child, but we are also not forgetting the boy child. And I think we'll be very happy to collaborate with you. I'll talk to you tomorrow, hopefully, when we have opened tomorrow at about noon or thereabouts.
Okay, this one is from the Caribbean, Barbados. I think we need to take it. Hello?
Yes.
That should be the last call. Hello?
Good night. Yes, good evening. Good evening, Professor. Good evening, Susan.
Good evening.
Yes, I want to first give the respect to the professor on behalf of all the years of your hard work, sir. We in this side of diaspora that who came off that ship has recognized the call and has heard the call of unity. And I want to also state
Hello? Who's just really mean here? Hello?
From Barbados.
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of a lot of youths, yes, that is looking for the changes. Your ability, your mindset, your approach for Africans, not just a country or a state, but for a mass of people. We need to listen and act accordingly as how our forefather has said this. Now, Professor, I want to ask you something, sir. Are you familiar that the world, especially the Western world, the Caribbean and America, is becoming cashless?
I didn't get that.
If you're aware that the world, especially the West, has become cashless, I think like they can't win the game anymore. Cashless. Cashless.
Cashless. Yes, I'm aware of that.
Yes. Now, one of the problems we see that, sir, is that the same strategy, because all of these politicians has been one college, one university, and has taught one familiar education, is to have us oppressed. Now, I would like for you, sir, please, once this world is open, I would like for you to have a World Youth Organization Day, where each and every youth from this side will be able to come to Africa and understand what Africa is. Because the system has closed, it has shut us off from Africa. It seems like we are weak and there's no communication and we don't have no one to turn to. We, the black in this side of the world, sir, we don't have no one, no country, no nation to look to but ourselves.
Thank you.
Throughout the years, they have assassinated all our leaders and we have not been able to move forward up until today. And I always tell Susan this, the change is here and you have done it, Professor. Not just you alone, but the full organization of Black sisters and brothers of Africa. We have heard the call. We're just asking for Africa to unite, as I say, or to come together and hold the extra doors. Because if we keep opening these doors, the distraction of what's happening, including the COVID-19, including the lack of education that they're putting on us, we are not able to understand your language. So I'm asking you, sir, to put a time, especially to have a youth organization day, so we'll be able to understand the history and your mission. And as you stated earlier, this is not for us today, but for the generation to come. Because if we do not fix this now, the generation that is ahead, or who are here now to move forward further, we will have the same problem up on the next 500 to 600 years. I respect you, sir, and I thank you very much. And as I stated, we're here to call Africa. Believe me, we are ready. It's just you have to believe in yourself and do the action, do the right thing. We have to get out of this. We must. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, I think that contribution really is something that we must take up going forward. That we've got to ensure that our kith and kin who are in the Caribbean, Barbados, in Jamaica, in Trinidad, and in Tobago, and those other parts of the world are made to know that there is a mothership and that they've got to come back and begin a process of initiation so that they understand what it is. That, I think, is a call to action, which it is our duty to think about. And I hope that going forward, these are the things that we must have and pencil in our books for purposes of action. So I see that there's a friend of mine from Gambia who is asking you to invite Dr. Halifa Sali from the Gambia. I think the more voices, the merrier. And the question perhaps that I should answer is that somebody is asking there, and I can see there, what is the position of countries such as Morocco? Morocco, you know, is an undecided country. There was a time when it even left the African Union and applied to be a part of the European Union. They were readmitted in 2018, and part of their quarrel is that the African Union had accepted and recognized the Arab Republic of Sahrawi. I believe and pray that Morocco will be decided. Algeria is a little unfortunate that Algeria used to have very good leaders who are very Pan-Africanist, but then we have a problem. Ahmed Ben Bella was from Algeria, and he was a great leader. I hope that the Algerians in this platform will now reinvigorate the spirit of Ahmed Ben Bella.
Good. Thank you so very much, Professor. Like you said, I mean, every good thing comes to an end. Every good thing comes to an end. And I'm really apologizing to those that are still struggling to join us here. But I want to assure you, and with the confirmation of Professor PLO, that this is not the last time that he's going to be here. He's going to be here very, very soon. I can promise, I can say it, depending on his program. And all these questions will be answered. I'm really apologizing on behalf of the Pan-African TV and also Professor Lumumba that we cannot take this call. There are more than 150 calls still waiting, and it's just not impossible possible for us to get this call right now. So let me thank you, Professor PLO Lumumba. And any last word? When would you be stopping by to, you know?
Let me end with these words, and these are words that I was picked out of a speech that was delivered by Julius Kambarage Nyerere on the 6th day of March 1997. Africa must unite. If it does not unite, then it has no future. So Africa must unite if she has to have a future, and unite we must. And when we talk about unity, it means those who are in the mother continent, those of you who are in the diaspora, and diaspora must mean Europe, America, the Caribbean, Latin America, wherever people of our origin or people of African origin are. Remember that we are of the same stock, and what harms you out there harms us, and what affects you affects us. And if there was any doubt about that, the Chinese have told us that sometimes we are condemned merely because of the color of our skin, and we must be proud of it. And our pride demands that we protect ourselves, and each of us must be our brother's keeper, our brothers and sisters' keepers, if we are to survive in this world.
Thank you very much. It can be said better. Anytime soon that you'll be coming around, we would keep you informed and the public. So thank you so very much. It has been a pleasure, Professor, and you have seen the need, and we continue to pray for you. And one last thing I can assure you, even the PLO Foundation would be represented all over the diaspora. So to keep this connection, it's not going to only end up in the 38 countries on the continent, but we have to expand so that we stay on the same line of collaboration or communication or bridging the diaspora and the continent through the PLO Lumumba Foundation. So thank you so much and good night, and we would keep in touch. God bless you.
Thank you very much.